So, what day is today?
Today's Wednesday, actually.
And what day do we release our episodes?
Wednesday.
And what did we say last week about episodes? If we said something different, I can't remember.
We were going to do a double episode, and we failed.
Yeah.
Failed miserably.
Yeah. So, as we said last week, we're really bad at schedules and having a hard time getting back on one. That said, we are still planning on catching up.
To be perfectly fair, the falling behind on the podcast is at least partially your fault because you don't want to watch the movies ever.
I wouldn't say ever. There are random times that I'm like, oh, I'm excited to watch this one.
I think I spend more of my time getting you to watch the movie than the movie lasts.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Also, though, you watch them at night, and I don't want to do anything at night, so...
No, my wife is the sick type of person that wakes up at 6 a.m. without an alarm.
Yeah, so don't you think Tyler should, do things in the morning with me? Maybe we get more things done.
No! Yeah. Wake me up at 8.
But I feel, since we're blaming me, there might be something we can blame you for.
Admittedly at fault for the horrible audio quality from last week.
Yes. Now, I was called out on this, and I won't mention any names or anything like that, but I was called out, and I was led to believe that the curtain that the dog had taken down was the issue, and I, silly me, didn't investigate further. But what happened, dear?
So, we have been playing a lot of Among Us.
Yes, we have.
We actually started a Discord server, which some of you have not played on. Some
of you who have joined.
You have joined and not played.
Yeah, rude.
Failure.
Yes, but anyways, move on.
So, I had hooked up my headset, and we were recording through the headset and not our actual appropriate microphone.
And who figured out that problem?
My lovely wife figured that out, and she has graciously let me forget about it and not blame me and swept under the rug, and it's been...
I will also note that we are re-recording our podcast because of that. So if you're noticing that it is later at night, we actually did accomplish this early in the morning.
Yeah.
And it was completed and done. And then we realized we had to re-record. So...
All right.
Great times. But anyways, you picked a movie.
I picked a movie.
What was
Welcome to the Rock. It is The Rock.
Every time you say that, I keep thinking to myself, like, the whole name is Welcome to the Rock, and I just didn't realize it.
No, it's The Rock. Not to be confused with The Rock, who is an action star, but it's the movie The Rock.
And why did you pick it?
So I picked it for the late, great Sean Connery. Because he recently passed away, and 2020 just needs to stop. And it's been a year.
Yeah. Alex Trebek, guys?
Alex Trebek. Or is it? Yeah, and just Sean Connery.
Everybody, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. 2020 has... Okay, guys, 2 months to go. Let's get out. Let's just rush to that finish line.
If they take any other favorite celebrities, I am going to burn this year to the ground.
Yes. Because of the first recording, I will reserve names, but y'all know there's certain people that are in their 90s and are very beloved.
Don't even speak to
them. Let's protect all of them. All of them. Anybody beloved in their 90s, which I can think of a few off the top of my head right now. Let's protect them. Okay? How's that?
Costs.
Do we feel better about that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm glad. Anyway, you also had another error for this podcast that you need to acknowledge.
What?
What would be our next section? What would we be
the
doing?
lack of a beer?
Yeah.
Well, there was no choices at the liquor store.
We did go to the store, in the store we always go to.
Yeah.
And you failed.
It let me down. There was no choices.
So we're going to do better for next one. So when I tell you the movie at the end of this, if you have suggestions, let us know because we are going to be purchasing probably tomorrow.
I'm stupid.
What?
I should have picked Castle Rock Brewery.
What? How did you miss this?
I just remembered that we had gone to New York and had them. But I don't think they were at the store though. So
I think you're making excuses, but fine. All right, give us a brief synopsis for those who haven't seen it.
Brief synopsis.
Brief synopsis.
Movie is about a group of disenfranchised special forces people who steal chemical weapons, hold a bunch of tourists hostage on Alcatraz, and threaten San Francisco and Oakland with chemical attack.
Okay, that's fair.
And it's centered around Sean Connery's character and Nicolas Cage's character trying to break into Alcatraz to disarm the weapons. That's the movie.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah.
Fair. It's a very long, brief synopsis, but hey,
You get on my case for them being too brief, so which way do you want it?
I want it my way.
Okay,
anyway.
Move on.
The first person on the IMDb cast would be Sean Connery.
Well, of course. I mean, he has to be top billed.
Right. So he plays John Patrick Mason. And you gave a good reference last time. He's basically, I know, the same character from another movie we did, El Duce from Boondock Saints. I was so afraid I was going to get that wrong. But yeah, same hair, same attitude, same I'm a badass, but I'm not a badass.
Well, I think Boondock Saints came out well after this movie. I think it's heavily inspired.
Think a homage?
And if not...
Homage,
if not outright plagiarism.
But do we care, though? Because I love the character so much that,
both of the characters only work because it's Sean Connery and
Billy
Connolly. So, I mean, they're both Scottish. I think it's just, they have a great accent. And
they're just great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what else do you know Sean Connery from? Because sadly, we have not done another Sean Connery movie.
I mean, he's been in a lot of movies. So James Bond, obviously.
Well, I mean, if you missed that, I would be so sad for you.
Entrapment.
On his IMDb, the first ones that pop up is The Untouchables. Thunderball. Sir Billy looks like a game or something. Is cartoons, and I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's cartoons or...
It is an animated movie.
It's I'm in. You've sold me. A retired veteran living in a remote Scottish village encounters a goat who thinks he's a dog, and an admiral who's afraid of the water, and a beaver who is raised by rabbits.
Did we just pick our next movie?
Did we just become best friends? In.
But yeah, no, it's, if you don't know who Sean Connery is, then stop watching movies because you've messed up.
I was gonna say swears, but yeah. I've chosen not to, so you got me. Okay, so next character is Nicolas Cage.
Yep.
He plays Stanley Goodspeed, and he plays Nicolas Cage. I mean,
it's meme-tastic Nick Cage.
It's everything you would expect for Nick Cage to be, even though it's a serious role, as I'll put that in air quotes.
No, he's not a serious character in this movie. He's the comic relief in this movie.
Yeah, he
says quite a few things that are ad-libbed, and we'll get to that later on the podcast. He is my Lord of the Rings reference.
Oh boy, of course he is.
He's a national treasure with Sean Bean, who is Boromir in Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
So proud of you for picking the guy who's in every movie because he's in ridiculous debt and needs to pay that off.
Oh yeah, he's in hock to the IRS for $100 million or something crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, we usually say what we know people from, and I mean, we know Nicolas Cage from everything, but Face Off, Leaving Las Vegas, Next, Grand Isle, Primal.
Wicker Man, the remake.
Yeah, I mean, you could go on for days. There's some vampire thing that somebody recommended to us.
Well, yeah, it's just he has that super creepy teeth smile face with the eyes. It's just...
Yeah. Okay, so Ed Harris plays Hummel. And
General Hummel.
He's a sympathetic villain, and I don't really know what to say about his character other than I had a hard time deciding if I hated him or at least sympathized with him. I was struggling with him, but...
I mean, he's been in a lot of things. He's usually the villain. I mean, he's in Westworld as one of the villains.
So is it the blue eyes that are menacing, or...
Well, he is famous for that austere kind of serious
he just
scowl.
Has a slanted forehead.
Yeah, he's got a very stern looking face. I'm sorry.
Chiseled.
I'm sure he's wonderful as a person.
I want to know what he looked like younger.
Those people are probably the nicest people. The mean looking people.
Well, they have to be. They have to be so nice to compensate for that.
Yeah. I mean, he was in. I think it was in Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe.
Okay. Well, he's very chiseled, so I wonder what he looked like when he was younger.
We'll Google that for you later.
Oh, thanks. Yep. Late night things to do with my hubby. John Spencer, I wanted to mention because you're obsessed with West Wing and you make me watch it almost daily.
Yes, I do. He is Leo McGarry.
Yes, in West Wing. In
West Wing. He's not Leo McGarry in this movie. He's a decidedly miserable person.
He's FBI Director
Womack, and he just violates the Constitution to fit his own personal agenda. And throw someone into prison forever without any kind of charges or trial, and it's awful.
So, do you have any more negative you want to say about him? Or
Yeah, he's basically the worst character in this movie.
Oh, okay. Well,
And
glad.
he's not even the villain.
So the only other person I had to talk about was John C. McGinley.
Dr. Cox.
Dr. Cox, yes. So he plays Marine Captain Hendricks, one of the mercenaries.
Yeah.
Not a good guy.
No.
No. Dr. Cox is like the good guy. Well, bad guy that you love, I guess is the way you would word that.
He's similar a lot to Hummel, where he's good at his job and he's gruff and horrible, but he's got a heart. He's got a soft.
He's got a heart. So anyway, I enjoy him, and I knew him right away from Scrubs, and I figured I would use my reference there to, find one of the guest stars, because Scrubs had a lot of them, and it was during Gilmore Girls, so why not? You know what I'm saying?
So you were cheating.
Yeah, but I failed. So I failed at cheating.
Well, that's your own fault.
Yeah. So anyway, I did actually, on his IMDb, figure out a connection anyways. He was on 42 with Peter Mackenzie, who was Dr. Schultz from Gilmore Girls.
Okay. 42, I believe that's the Jackie Robinson story.
Have you seen it?
I have.
Oh, well, I have not.
It's a great story. It's
sad
baseball.
for me. I love baseball.
I know you do.
And
So I'm surprised you haven't seen it.
I'm really behind on all movies.
You haven't seen any kind of baseball movies.
No, and we will be rectifying that very soon.
One of them.
Yes, well, one step at a time, as they say. So is there any other characters you wanted to cover before we move on?
I think that's it.
All right, then.
So back to Hummel, because we're starting off with him being the bad guy. Is he actually a bad guy?
So you're taking the questions?
I am taking your
You're
questions.
becoming the interviewer instead of the
know.
interviewee. Don't know if I like that, considering this is action. But to answer your question, I don't know. I'm conflicted on him. So he had a good reason for what he did.
Yeah. So for the 5 people that have never seen this movie,
Who I would have been part of.
yeah, he is doing this because the U.S. government has left behind something like almost 100 of his soldiers that he commanded during wartime, and paid no benefits to their families, didn't give them any recognition or honors or medals, and he just finds that intolerable, and that's just the biggest disrespect that he could imagine, because you're taught never leave a man behind.
Right, exactly.
So-
But you said doing this, so what was he doing?
He was in special forces, so he was doing all of the dangerous things, like the
No, dear.
what?
You said he is doing this because...
So he took hostages and is threatening California, San Francisco, and Oakland with chemical warfare, which I covered in the brief synopsis.
Yes, but you're...
So he's basically trying to ransom American civilians to pay benefits to the fallen soldiers. So he's doing a horrible thing, but he's doing it for a good reason.
Right.
So he's basically, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, and I mean, so one of the reasons that he becomes sympathetic and you start questioning if you hate him or not is because you find out towards more at the end of the movie-ish that he's actually not going to kill a bunch of civilians.
Bluffing.
He's bluffing. But I mean, the question was he bluffing the whole time, or did he kind of chicken out? Was his intention to only bluff, or was his intention to actually kill, and then maybe he had a change of heart or decided against it for some other reason? Was that always his intention? What do you think?
I would go with that he was always intending to bluff, because he never, given the accommodations and medals that he won in this movie as part of his backstory, I just can't see him turning chemical agents on civilians.
But then why would he choose people with him that are just decidedly awful people and that clearly didn't know his intention was to bluff because they turned on him?
Well, I think that's the dangerous part of conspiracy. As soon as it gets past a few people, there's no controlling it. It snowballs and it's gone, and there's no getting it back. There's no unringing that bell.
But I mean, if you are playing with somebody's life and you don't want to actually hurt them, don't you think you would be very particular of the people you choose to play this game with you?
I mean, you would think, but at the same time, who knows?
He's a dude and didn't think that far ahead?
I don't know. I honestly don't know, because clearly they did have it change our... I think he put more emphasis on expecting them to follow the chain of command, because that's what you're brainwashed into doing in the army, is to listening to the person above you.
That makes sense. I mean, I think also there's probably some decision-making problems with him. You know, I don't think he really thought through what he was doing. He had a cause and he wanted to finish the cause, and he wasn't really taking into effect the amount of people he could impact if anything went wrong in a billion different ways, and how out of control he really was of the situation. But anyway, anything else you want to say on his character?
I mean, no, he's one of the most complex villains that we've covered in a while. I mean,
it's true.
Most villains these days are just kind of vanilla and...
I love complex villains, though.
Yeah, I mean, they're the best villains. Anthony Hopkins, Hannibal Lecter. I mean, just...
Or, what's the guy's name in You that made my famous meme go viral?
Penn Badgley?
Joe, yeah. Joe in You. He's great. He's very complicated, and you get to know everything that's going on in there.
He's incredibly insane.
And I adore him. I was rooting for him the whole time.
That says a lot about you, darling.
He made me famous, so stand. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think that he is probably one of the most complicated villains we have, but that leads into the next thing we were going to talk about, which is character development.
Right.
So, you know, the internet seems to believe that this has great character development, and I think that we have to look at this as we are looking at an action film and not
you can't compare this to Citizen Kane. You can't compare this to any kind of serious movie. Can you?
You're baiting me. Fruit can be compared. You're baiting me.
Fruit can't be compared. Apples and oranges.
That don't make no sense. Why can't fruit be compared? You baited me into it, and I had to. If you guys don't know what that's a reference to, there is a Little Dicky song that we listen to far too much. So yes, if you haven't heard that reference, there you go. But two unlike things can be compared. That's what comparisons are for.
I know. But at the same time, it is not a fair comparison to make for this movie, because you have to compare it more in line with its contemporaries, other action movies. And
so I will disagree on one part there. I understand why you feel it's an unfair comparison. However, for somebody who goes into a movie looking solely and predominantly for character development, I won't be pulled into an action film unless that's there. So it is important for me to compare it to character development that is important to me, that I feel has been done well.
I mean... So comparing this, this is in the top portion of character development for action movies. I mean, it's up there.
Okay, then what characters do you feel had good character development? Maybe we can do it that way.
The only two are Hummel and John Patrick Mason.
Yeah,
you know.
Now I'll agree with you there.
The rest of the characters, Nick Cage included, are kind of flat and one-dimensional.
Right. So I think we agree on that. I think those two characters had pretty decent character development for action films, but one, I think that the beginning of the movie lacked any semblance of character development, and really through the beginning of the middle as well. It really started kicking in when Mason's daughter showed up, and it also started kicking in when Hummel's indecision started showing up, and you started seeing him reeling through like what he was doing, and people turning on him and all of that.
Right.
So that's when I got invested. That's when I actually like really paid attention, because other than that, I was kind of bored. Not gonna lie. But Nicolas Cage is a big character in this film, and I really felt like I did not care about him at all, and I didn't even understand that he was a chemical scientist person thing, and what?
Zeus's butthole?
Yeah, Zeus, like, okay, I'm just going to say this.
I think Nick Cage suffers because he ad-libbed a lot of his lines in this movie.
Yeah, and we'll talk about his character a little bit more, but the thing that I struggle with him is, how can I have character development when I don't even feel like his character was any more than himself? I truly don't. So he was a scientist, right?
Yeah.
What did they show me that showed that he had any knowledge more than an average person or Connery's character?
He didn't have anything close to practical knowledge like Sean Connery's character.
Well, right. So how did I distinguish him as a scientist in this film? What did they do for me to show me that?
I mean, the bomb disarming scene that he had at the beginning of the movie is the only thing.
Okay. So he was able to disarm a bomb, which I don't even know if really falls under chemical scientist realm.
Well, it was sarin gas.
Okay.
explosion.
Okay, so one thing. So they did that, and then the rest of the film, he just floundered, or what?
Well, he wasn't even really needed after that. Like, the whole movie, I mean, he's basically there just to be careful. I don't know, like, it's don't break the glass balls. How hard is that? Like, can't the Navy SEALs do that? Can't really anyone do that?
Yeah, I don't think that his character really showed any indication that he was an actual scientist. So yeah, I don't know.
It was kind of, they forced him into this movie when they could have just made him kind of another badass or something. It felt a little bit kind of random.
Yeah, or they could have actually made him a scientist. They could have actually, done scientist things. I don't even know. Maybe give him glasses, something. I don't know.
Or just make it a little bit harder than basically playing Operation with fucking nightmare balls.
Yeah. So when we're talking about character development, we always talk about the Bechdel test, right?
Well, you do, yeah.
Anyway, my point was that there are there's one woman. Okay, 1.5 women.
there's one actual living woman and one dead woman that you don't see.
Yeah, so do we count a dead, not on-screen woman?
I mean...
Does she even have an actress attributed to her?
No, she does not.
Okay,
it's a gravesite in Arlington. So there's no...
One woman,
woman character. One female character, yes.
Yeah, and she's really just there to tell Nicolas Cage she's pregnant and get berated.
Yeah, and then also to have it feel like there's higher stakes because his pregnant girlfriend is in San Francisco now, and he can't fail, and that's really it.
I mean, yeah, but the way he reacted to her, do we feel like the stakes are that high for him?
Well, he did say that bringing a child into the world is an act of cruelty.
So, I mean, if he died, maybe he'd be happy about that.
I mean, worst reaction to I'm pregnant ever?
Right. But the reason I brought that up is not because I feel like there should be more women in this, because I don't believe that you should throw in women for no reason.
The daughter. There's two.
Oh, you're right. There is the daughter. Again, she's in one scene, and she's literally there for the purpose of giving John Patrick Mason a backstory.
Yeah.
But my point was what they normally do in action films is kind of that. They'll give you a woman to make you fill out the character, and to give them...
To add the male character depth.
Right. With John Patrick Mason, they did that with the daughter, right? Yeah. They did that. They used her for that serve. And I don't find anything wrong with that. This is an action film. That's what y'all do. But Nicolas Cage's girlfriend, they really, if anything, made the character worse. Like, you watch that scene and you're just like, dick, like, I don't even care about you. If you die, the woman's probably better off raising without that negativity.
Well, you could just say, we were married and he died doing his job. It was a tragedy. So
I hope she gets all the money for that whole thing, because I'm sure he got banked.
Well, I mean, if General Hummel is any indication, the government's going to say no.
I mean, fair, but regardless, I don't feel like she added much to his character.
The girlfriend was kind of a wasted, just extra character.
Well, they needed a sex scene because you guys need sex. I mean, obviously. Sex and explosions.
Well, I mean, that is Michael Bay.
That is most male audience.
But it's also Michael Bay's movies, all of them.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so then there was a cool little fan theory about Connery's character.
Ooh, I do love fan theories, although I've heard it 6 times now.
I cannot be blamed for this. Anyways, fan theory. Connery's character was a continuation of the Bond character.
I can see that. I mean, they're both trained by British intelligence, licensed to kill, super spy. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and now in the time that we've recorded this for the 1,000th time, people have been tweeting about this, and Rich said that there's 2 things he said. One, he said that he was arrested for killing 2 men on a cruise ship after an incident on an offshore oil rig off the coast of California. He put a question mark, so related.
Yeah, it has to be related.
It has to be, right?
Yeah.
Or is that a weird coincidence?
No, it has to be an homage at that bare minimum.
It has to be, right? And then the other thing he says is he mentions in Diamonds Are Forever that he was SAS, British intelligence, and there were a few other quips that felt like meta nods to 007. So, I mean, I think that's really cool. If it's not true and it's not the case, it should be.
Well, it might be a case of thinking more of the people in charge of this than we do. It happens with literature and writers all the time, where you read into what they were saying and they're like, no, the cat is a cat. It's not a...
Giving them too much credit is what you're saying?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
it is Michael Bay, so.
Wow. I mean, that'd be a great nod to the past if that's the case. And I want to see that in more movies. Like, I want to see a kind of continuation of another person's character in another movie. Like,
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen that really much. I mean, I've seen it in smaller roles, but not in like a main character role.
like Brad Pitt is secretly Tyler Durden from,
Oh, that
Fight
would be
Club.
great.
or I mean, I don't know any other ones off the top of my head, but that would just be cool.
Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but you could do like Tom Hanks' Forrest Gump or something.
I mean, Henry Cavill as Superman, or
Right, it's gotta be a classic like that, you know. Like
it just
it's
gotta be the iconic role from their acting career, and they just throw it in there.
Yeah, and I want them to be a main character. So like the whole time you're like watching them, and you're all of a sudden like, wait, I recognize you. Like,
he was the personal law, like
right? Yeah, that's what I want. I mean, the closest I can think of
Hugh Jackman and Wolverine.
Just all of a sudden, randomly, he's just scratching
Claws.
like, oh man, my claws are bothering me. Claws? What the heck is he?
Yeah, I think that would be a cool thing. You have to do it well. But it's hard because certain characters that you are known for are fictional and doesn't fit into a story.
But I mean, we're creative people. I mean, come on, world, you got
Anthony
this.
Hopkins and Hannibal Lecter, like.
See, this would be a way that like you could do a remake without doing a remake. Like it would be
Yeah.
a totally different story, but you've now bring in a character that is
It's a continuation of the other older classic movie.
right without telling us.
Yeah.
Just don't tell me. Just let me figure it out.
That'd
Give
be
me the
great.
clues. Yeah.
You had a great one actually.
Did I? I don't remember.
From Split.
Oh, yeah. So they did previously do this. I feel like in a smaller way in Split, where Bruce Willis's character from Unbreakable shows up, which
Yeah.
I didn't even notice because I had never seen Unbreakable until after Split. But it's a cute little like you're in on it if you watch my movies type thing, and that's Quentin Tarantino. Yeah,
I think that's M. Night Shyamalan.
M. Night Shyamalan. I always get them confused because I love them both. But you had said earlier that
Well, there's a theory that all Quentin Tarantino movies are in the same universe. So, Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
that'd be so cool to like if they had like characters
Kill Bill
intermix.
even. Yeah, that would just... Although it breaks down a little bit because Brad Pitt is in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Inglourious Bastards.
No,
That's
just because the actors doesn't mean that the character isn't moving around, right? Because I mean,
But they're two separate people, though. They're the same actor, but two separate individuals. That's
the beauty of acting.
Yeah.
You can be a character can be in both worlds, where
I
an
mean,
actor is.
the same with Christoph Waltz, actually. He's in Django Unchained and also Inglourious
You'd be into
Bastards.
particular here.
Yeah, it's breaking down now that I think about it, but it is a cool idea.
He's ruining everything.
I've ruined it.
He's thought about it.
This
too
is
much.
why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, this is why we can't re-record a podcast 18 times.
Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. So we talked about a little bit of Nicolas Cage's ad-libbing and how it kind of affected the film, but did we really talk about the fact that it kind of took away from the film?
So it did, but it didn't. So it hurt his character, I feel, because his character is very kind of one-dimensional.
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage. It's
Yeah.
just it was almost like internet memes jammed into a movie.
Right. Now, was the one on the desk when he did the thing, was that from this movie? Because I looked at it and it looked like a similar angle, but
I think so.
somebody had a quick hand at the pause there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I don't know.
I mean, I can understand having seen that before and not having all of Nick Cage memes where that didn't cloud my viewing this movie.
Oh, it clouded mine.
Yeah.
Oh, it clouded mine.
But, I mean, I also watched this the first time when I was much younger, so the one-dimensional didn't bother me at all.
What, because you're a one-dimensional child?
Well, no, it's just because you're watching it to watch a action movie. You're watching...
You were like, I want the explosions.
Yeah, I was all about the Michael
Blow
Bay
it
experience when I
up.
was a teenager and 13 to 18-ish, someone like
13 to 34.
But, I mean, it does kind of take away... The only reason it's saved is because Sir Sean Connery's in this movie.
Now, did we talk about the swearing that he chose to do or not do?
Lack thereof? No, haven't talked about that yet.
Sorry, I forget what we've talked about at this point. So, Nicolas Cage actually made a choice to not swear for his character. He made this on his own, and he only swore, I think, twice in the whole film.
Yeah. I think one of them is when he's killing the final bad guy. But, I mean, I think it was just a subtle nod to that he's not a normal soldier or field FBI agent. And he's kind of a more reserved book person.
So scientists don't swear? That's what we're saying?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's the leap that he made. I don't know why he would have chosen it. I just think that's where his mind went.
Do finance men swear?
I swear like a fucking sailor.
Yeah. You swear more than I've ever sworn in my life.
I swear more than any goddamn person.
But wouldn't you fall under like the book smart, like nerdy type?
Well, thank you for saying that. I like to think so. But...
So I'm just saying, like, in this case, you would be more akin to Nicolas Cage's character than Hummel's character.
I mean, yeah.
Or what they were going for, not where they landed, but... But anyway, I'm just curious because I feel like it's an odd choice for an action film because I feel like you're used to kind of like the coarse language and stuff.
I mean, it is a nice break from the seriousness of the movie to have a little bit of comic relief in Zeus's Butthole.
Oh, God. That I'll never forget Zeus's Butthole. Like, that will forever, like, remember. Like, I will forever remember The Rock and Zeus's Butthole.
I mean, there's a lot of great quotable lines from this movie, and that's a classic staple from any action movie. I'll be back from Terminator.
You're the little rocket man now?
Yeah, or losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen.
I don't know what that's from, but wow.
That's from Sean Connery. Or, this is an act of lunacy.
That, I remember. Oh, because you said lunacy.
Lunacy.
Okay, so it doesn't bother you?
Not really. I mean, I think it would have bothered me a lot more if it was a different person that he was in this movie with. I don't think it would have played nearly as well with any other character.
Well, since you mentioned that, I'm assuming you did that because we haven't gone here yet. But there was an actor who was said on Reddit AMA that he is sad that he didn't take this film, which was Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I couldn't clarify whether or not it was John Patrick Mason or Hummel's character that he was going to take or was offered. But do you think either one of those he would have been good for?
No. I mean, just a hard no.
I mean, this has gotten more firm as we've recorded.
It has, because it's just reaffirming how wrong he would have fit for this movie. Like, now, Arnold Schwarzenegger is the action person of the 80s and 90s. Like,
exactly why he was offered the role. Obviously.
Of course it was. But it just wouldn't have worked because he doesn't have the same kind of wizened, calm experience and demeanor that Ed Harris does and that stern glower of the general.
Yeah, that's true.
And he doesn't have that same kind of cachet that... It's the James Bond quality that Sean Connery has.
Yeah, he's charismatic.
Well, he's got that great Scottish accent and he's just got... You believe that he is a smooth British officer. Like,
no, yeah,
you totally
absolutely.
buy that.
Yeah, I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger is a little bit too awkward.
Well, he's just... I think part of that is English is a second language because he's Austrian, but...
It could be.
He doesn't have that cool charisma that Sean Connery does in the same way. He has his own charisma. It's much more tied to his physical stature, I feel.
I mean, that's fair. I can see that.
It's just different. It's not better or worse. It's a different style.
Now, the one thing I didn't ask before, but I thought about now, is so this movie I feel isn't as popular, at least for everybody, than like Terminator, right? So do you think that this movie would have been more popular if Arnold Schwarzenegger was on the billing? It would have been more...
I think it would have been more watched back when it aired, but I don't think it would have been as classic as it is comparatively.
Yeah, so it's like more of a cult classic, right? Like
right.
It didn't get a wide release, did it? Because I feel like
Not terribly,
didn't hear anything of it.
Like you can't change out Rambo for anyone other than Sylvester Stallone. You can't change out Arnold Schwarzenegger for anyone for the Terminator. Like those are
just yeah.
It's one of those things where you can't go back in and change things because you don't know how it would play. I mean, the only exception to that would be Billy Connolly because he's also Scottish and has the same long gray hair.
Right, which I really feel somebody needs to edit pieces of Boondock Saints in this movie together.
The scene that would work really well is the prison release scene.
Mm-hmm.
So they both are getting released from prison and you're showing how seriously they're taking.
You told, like, if you know how to do this, because you know how to edit video, you need to do this and then release it and see if anyone noticed.
I think I might.
That would be delightful.
It was a great idea.
Yeah, I'm full of them. Anyway, did we talk about Michael Bay's sequel?
We have not talked about the sequel. We have in all of our failed recording attempts, but not yet on this one. Yeah,
so I think you mentioned earlier in the podcast that there was a failed sequel, and I feel that you are against it.
Oh no, the sequel would have been a terrible travesty abomination of a movie. So the sequel was supposed to be at the end of this film that Nicolas Cage character gets the microfilm, and the U.S. government in the sequel finds out about it, and he gets chased by the federal government, and he has to go back to Mason to get rescued and team up.
I mean, it doesn't sound bad.
Well, I just feel like we already have that movie,
what?
And it's a better movie. It's Enemy of the State with Will Smith.
Oh, well, anything with Will Smith is better than...
It's Will Smith and Gene Hackman as the old grumpy...
Yeah, Gene Hackman.
So, that was such a good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it had better character development for an action movie than almost any other that I can think of off the top of my head.
Oh, so we're adding it to the list?
I think so. I think that's fair.
Okay, so you didn't like it because it already happened. Now, if Enemy of the State didn't happen, would you have liked that?
Probably. It's a great idea. I want to see it tastefully done, obviously.
No, since we're in the era of remakes, how would you feel about a remake of this?
It's hard to remake it without Sean Connery or any of the... you can't...
Is Billy Connolly still around?
Yes. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's not on the level of Psycho or Citizen Kane or 12 Angry Men or any of the classic untouchable movies. But it is one of those movies that you don't want to see again.
Yeah. I would agree. I would rather they didn't remake a movie like this because it's so loved already.
Yeah.
But Nicolas Cage does still look the same. So, you wouldn't even...
Yeah, him and Keanu Reeves don't seem to change.
Yeah, is there something going on there?
Secret pact with the devil? Maybe Nick Cage isn't allowed to age until he's paid his debt to the IRS?
He's never going to age. Let's be real. But yeah, so, if they were to make a sequel, if they did a different format, would you be on for it?
I think so. I think I could get behind that. It would depend on how the movie was.
Yeah, see, I just don't know if I can without Sean Connery. I don't know. I would have to see, unless they wrote that in, right. That his character passed just like he did, and there was a backstory for that. Maybe I could do that, but it would have to be respectful. But anyway, okay, so there is controversy for this film, which I love controversy.
You do love a good bit of drama.
Of course I do.
My wife is obsessed with drama.
Yes. Anyway, so there was arbitration for the Writers Guild because there was a bunch of uncredited writers. I guess people collabed together to make this script or whatever, and then they weren't credited. The two major names that come up from this was Quentin Tarantino, which we've talked about a bit in this podcast, and Aaron Sorkin.
Aaron Sorkin is a great writer.
Yeah, and if I was one of those big billed people and I didn't get billing for helping with something...
I'd be pissed. I'd be absolutely bullshit. I'd be just burning the studio to the ground.
Yeah, I don't understand, and I don't know how it was resolved or any of that kind of stuff, but it was a big deal, apparently. But I was curious, if you had known they were writers, is there any pieces of the film that you think you could kind of say, that's probably them?
I think a lot of Hummel's lines are straight out of Aaron Sorkin. Even Sean Connery's, the whole banter back and forth of the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Aaron Sorkin's all over that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then he goes back with patriotism is the virtue of the wicked, Oscar Wilde. And that's 100% Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah. Now we've done previous Aaron Sorkin films. The Social Network pops up, The Post.
Right.
And obviously he was West Wing. So, we know.
He's great with the dialogue and the exposition and a lot of the character development.
Yeah. Now, I wish he had more influence in the government side of the story.
Right.
Why did they deny benefits? We kind of just said because I said so type situation.
Because the government sucks in this movie.
Yeah, they could have given more exposition. Even bad reasons, there's reasons, right? They had a reason why they did what they did.
It's Donald Trump's presidency at the time.
Yeah. Boy, okay. Well, that's on recording. So anyway, but I wish that they had done that. Now for Quentin Tarantino, I didn't see any feet.
No, honestly, I have a less of a time picking out Tarantino's influence on this movie than I do Aaron Sorkin's.
Well, I mean, that's because you're more of a fan of Aaron Sorkin.
Well, yeah, he's one of the best writers for dialogue that I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you there. So I'm actually curious if people that are listening can tell us things that they pick out, because it feels like Quentin Tarantino's uncredited role is more well-known than Aaron Sorkin's.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't really know why. I'm not sure if it's because it's more obvious or if potentially Quentin Tarantino is more famous. I don't know.
I mean, I think Quentin Tarantino is a little bit more famous, to be honest, but who knows?
Okay, so, I mean, I don't think that Quentin Tarantino is more famous than Aaron Sorkin, but maybe a bigger, well-known name, I guess.
I think that's fair.
But fine. Okay, so we've gone through intentions, I believe. We've gone through basic. We've gone through arbitration. So, History Minute. On to you.
Oh, boy.
Strap in, ladies and gentlemen.
This is actually the second time we've actually gotten to the History Minute, because most of the other times we tried, we haven't gotten that far.
Yeah, so proud of us. Progress.
Tyler's History Minute.
Tyler's History Minute.
So, I want to talk about Alcatraz, The Rock, because
of course you do.
it is prominently featured in this movie.
And you probably always wanted to talk about
Well,
Alcatraz.
I mean, Michael Bay was saying that he just wanted to shoot on Alcatraz because it's so cool.
Yeah, I think he used some expletives there, but yeah.
So effing cool.
Yeah, probably.
So it was originally found by Western civilization in 1775 by the Spanish, and common misconception is people think it was called the Island of the Pelicans because there's pelicans everywhere. I think the original translation was Island of the Gannets.
Oh, so different bird.
Different bird. It was then repurposed in 1850 as a U.S. military installation to protect San Francisco Bay after we beat the Spanish in the Spanish-American War. And it didn't do a very good job of that. So they repurposed it even further as a military prison, because it's very good because it's an island. And from there, it was repurposed yet again into a federal prison. And it held all kinds of America's worst criminals. Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, Mickey Cohen, who is a gangster from Los Angeles, Alvin Karpis, which I'd never heard of Alvin Karpis before.
Wait, Al Capone, didn't we see his cell at the Philadelphia prison?
He was there as well, yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
So he kind of bounced around a lot of prisons because
okay. I felt like I saw, because he had a really cool cell in Philly.
Yeah, career criminal.
Yeah, okay,
so,
gotcha.
But Alvin Karpis is the only public enemy number one to be captured alive. So the others are John Dillinger, Babyface, etc. So they never got caught. They died in a hail of glory, a blaze of glory.
Oh, well, I mean, isn't that the way they prefer it?
I think they probably would. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is that there were wide rumors that The Rock is unescapable or inescapable. Cannot get out.
Mm-hmm.
There were, over 29 years, 36 prisoners attempted in 14 separate attempts. 23 were caught. 6 were shot while they were trying to escape. 2 were confirmed drowned, bodies recovered. And then 5 are missing, presumed drowned, because it's a long way to the next closest shore with very strong currents.
But it doesn't mean they're dead.
No. So,
as they say in the movies, if you don't see a body, they're not dead.
So the most famous escape attempt from Alcatraz was a group of 4 people. One of them didn't get out because he had really rotten luck, and he had his fake grate on the wall was slipping off and showing the hole, so he cemented it in place, and it dried, and he couldn't get through the hole.
Oh, damn.
But it was three men did get out and are missing. Frank Morris, John and Clarence Anglin. They had a very elaborate scheme. So they broke holes in their prison cells through the ventilation. Frank Morris bought an accordion specifically to cover up the noise of the digging. And he played with the accordion while everyone else was working. And then they would pass it around and he would dig. And They made papier-mâché heads to put in their beds so that the guards doing the bed checks would think that they're still there.
It feels like a lot of things that they made that nobody noticed. Like,
Yeah, they also made a raft.
Like, how do you put that in your cell and nobody sees it?
So they took a lot of the prison issue raincoats, which were rubber, waterized, rainproof, and they cut them apart and stitched and then knitted the seams together with a steam pipe to melt the rubber together. So they're the most likely to have made it.
They're very resourceful criminals.
Yeah,
if they're this resourceful, I'm sure that they planned out how to make it too.
They made a drill out of a repurposed vacuum cleaner for the drilling of the hole.
Dang.
Yeah.
Smart criminals.
So yeah. Next is I want to talk about the Chilcot Report. So the Chilcot Report was a report commissioned by the British government, and this was related to their joint invasion with America in the Iraq War.
Mm-hmm.
So it came out that this movie was actually drawn upon as part of the information for the weapons of mass destruction.
This movie was drawn upon for real invasion.
Real invasion of Iraq. So specifically related to the chemical weapons. So in this movie, they're kept in green glass balls, which is a terrible delivery. Like, that's the least secure thing that I can think of.
Right.
And chemical weapons, I mean, I don't know personally, but all of the source material indicates that would not be how they do it. They keep everything isolated, and it's a chemical reaction between a number of different chemical agents.
Right.
So that you don't accidentally
set
drop
it
and kill everyone in the room.
Right.
Yeah, because that's a terrible thing. You're
Right.
supposed to make it safe for you, not for the other guy.
Right.
But yeah, so they cited that it was in a glass container in this report, and we went to war for WMDs that didn't exist because it was a movie by Michael Bay.
And this movie, the director even said, didn't he, that, or co-writer or whatever it
One
was,
of the writers said
they made up this method, and
yes.
it doesn't make any sense because, like, it's odorless, colorless gas.
Right. If it's a chemical weapon and it's a gas, then it's invisible and you can't actually see anything, and that doesn't translate well on film.
Right.
So they came up with this other thing
to make it more exciting.
to make it more accessible and exciting.
Makes sense.
Lastly, the writers drew on a couple different inspirational pieces for General Hummel. The first being a 60 Minutes piece about military benefits not being paid and people not being honored.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a real life inspiration, David Hackworth. He was a Army colonel. He was instrumental in highly decorated in Vietnam and Korea. Kind of a controversial person, in fact. So he was the type of person that spoke his mind, and especially about the Army leadership. So he would call things out that were inappropriate. He said in 1971 on an interview while the Vietnam War was going on that there's no point. It's a lost cause. We can't possibly win. And he got some serious flack for that. He was actually also almost court-martialed because during his time in Vietnam, he at different points ran a brothel, a gambling ring, and he was manipulating the soldier script program, which is how they were paid, for his own financial gain.
I'm sorry. This man that you just described was the inspiration for a sympathetic villain?
Apparently, yeah.
They left out a few parts.
They did. They took out the
unsympathetic parts.
Yeah. So that's all I got for the History Minute.
Well, that's a lot for a History Minute. And it's actually interesting how much there is reality to where this came from. I'm actually surprised that there was anything. I figured it was just Michael Bay being Michael Bay. Okay, but so want to move into Audience Asks?
Audience Asks.
Sure.
All right, so first of all, I got to give a shout out to Stork. Stork is the only person that reached out to us before Audience Ask went up.
Good job, Stork.
Yeah.
Now play some Among Us with us.
Yeah, yes. And he does a Star Trek podcast. Yes, I got
Got
it
it
right.
twice in a row.
Up top.
Wow.
Sorry, our dog is having a panic attack right now. So if you hear panting, that is what it is. But he asked, question for the Rock episode. Is this movie where Nick Cage's career as a serious actor jumped the shark? If not, what movie was it?
Was Nick Cage ever a serious actor? Like,
you took it from me from last time. How rude.
He's the internet meme that is Nick Cage. Like,
yeah, so I mean, that was the question that we came out with. So is he a serious actor? I mean, if he is, then you had another movie suggestion, because I'm not going to steal from you, you know.
Oh, did I?
You did. You said it was potentially The Wicker Man.
I mean, he's covered in bees in that movie. That's internet meme like crazy.
Right.
So, I mean, does that count?
I don't know.
If he's an internet meme for that, does that count as a serious role?
I truthfully cannot think of a serious role that I would actually qualify as serious. I mean, when you say Zeus's Butthole, I really can't think of you as being a serious actor. You know what I'm saying? So the question remains there. If he is considered a serious actor, I mean, maybe, but we have really qualms with the word serious actor.
I think that's entirely fair.
Yeah. So 2 other people asked questions. The Cinementalist podcast. Cinementalist asks, is this the only good Michael Bay film? Spoilers, yes. What is your response?
Short answer, yes. Long answer, he makes it a bunch of ungodly explosions in CGI movies. Transformers comes to mind, and the 30 different sequels of Transformers. So yeah, it has to be his best movie.
I mean, so would your answer have been different if you were still 13?
Probably not.
No, really?
That's still probably the best of all of the movies, because I would have been really not happy with Transformers.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I thought 13-year-old you was all about explosions, man.
It was, but you also do need some kind of story. And Transformers, no, I mean, it wasn't as good.
I'll agree with you. Okay. The Dunking and Dragons podcast asked, were the bad guys actually bad guys?
I mean, yes, but also no.
Okay, explain.
So, I mean, Hummel is very much a man of principle and honor. The rest of the soldiers / mercenaries, not so much. So the main villain is not a villain so much as he's a troubled hero.
Okay.
And he's trying to do the right thing by any extreme measure. Because his entire life has been fighting in wars, and war's an extreme thing. So he has lost his sense of perspective.
Okay.
The rest of the mercenaries are irredeemable jackasses.
What about his friend?
Oh no, Major Tom. And great song reference, Major Tom, by the way. But he's fine. But the rest of them are terrible.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will say with Hummel, I'm conflicted. I don't know that I can give you a pass for kidnapping people and threatening to kill a large swath of people. I just don't know how I feel about that. Also, now that I know the person he was inspired by, that sounds like evil. That sounds like bad, villain, bad. So, don't know. But the mercenaries, I mean, there was no redeeming quality. We didn't get much else from them other than they wanted to kill people. So, I think
I'll take pleasure in gutting you, boy.
Yeah, I think we were meant to just think of them as bad. So, At least them, yes. The rest, questionable, I guess, is the best thing I can say there.
All right.
So that's all I got for Audience Ask. So do you want to move into your reviews?
Reviews.
Reviews and ratings. So Rotten Tomatoes, critic score is at 66. The audience score is 85%. So
That's a big difference.
That is a big difference. I think it's mostly to do with the fact that the critic score, there's not a whole lot to dig into. It's an action movie. There's no real great drama acting. There's no real great musical score. The score is great, but it's...
But there's nothing like crazy to really...
No, there's nothing
critique.
to dig... There's nothing to dissect and dig into in this movie. It's a simple action movie, and you're done. I think the audience score differs from the critic score because people have nostalgia for this movie, because they watch it when they're a kid or a teenager, and you're not looking to dissect this movie if you're a fan of action movies. You're just wanting to see explosions and gunfights.
Okay,
and car
so
chases.
with that said, what's your score?
So I would be kind of in the middle. I'm going to give it a 7.5. So
kind of low for a film you picked because you like and you own. I do own this movie.
I was a little bit underwhelmed watching it again now. And I think as I'm seeing more and more movies for the podcast, I'm being a little bit more...
Film snob?
Selective.
Mm-hmm. Film snob.
Discerning.
Got it. Understood. Mm-hmm.
Just like you and your job, where you are becoming a huge brand snob for clothing.
I mean, fair, but...
I think it's more exposure to better, more classic movies is kind of tainting my view.
I mean, I don't think the podcast would say we watch a lot of classic movies, but rather movies people have never heard of.
I mean, we'll watch some. Right? Surely a few.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we've desecrated them.
We've stumbled across a few classics by accident.
I suppose. So I was going to give it a 7. Maybe leaning to 6.5. So here's the thing. I didn't hate the movie. And towards the end of the movie, I was more engaged in the film. There was character development at the end there. But the beginning, I was bored. I gotta say, I was bored. And I know this is a really classic film, so people are not going to like me for that. But I'm just not super into action films. Also, explosions don't excite me.
Tremendously failed the Bechdel test.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not a problem for me. And always, I mean, I understand some films that they're not intended to pass, which is fine, but I didn't have anything I really cared about. If Connery's character wasn't in it, it to me would have been unwatchable.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. So anyway, I give this 7, leaning to 6.5 for basically Connery alone.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Connery makes this movie, and I don't think anyone argues that.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, if I wanted to ironically watch Nicolas Cage films, I would do that. I just wouldn't do it with a critic lens.
No.
So anyway, that's all.
You'd be watching the movie for the sake of the memes.
Exactly.
Not for actually trying to have to talk about it.
Exactly. Because Zeus's butthole really should be a meme if it's not already. Just saying.
Yeah. All right. So moving on. What's next week's choice? Your choice.
So next week. So we are trying, and we normally try in November, to do some sports films. And we don't always do it, trying. We're making our effort. And since we're having maybe a doubleheader week, although after today, I really just don't know. I wanted to do League of Their Own.
Yeah, Tom Hanks.
And we haven't done a female sports movie, or at least I can't remember that we have.
I don't think there are a whole lot of female sports movies.
There are some others. I know Whip It is one.
$1 Million Baby.
Yeah, so there are others, but we haven't done one yet, and I wanted to do that. And yeah, I know we do Tom Hanks a lot, but this one looks good. I think Gina Davis is in this as well.
Yep, I think Madonna's in it as well.
Yeah, which random. Yeah. But have you seen it?
I don't think I have, actually.
I don't think I have either. And I don't know who brought it up to me at first, but I know somebody in the audience of our podcast had mentioned it to me at one point. So if it was you, thank you for mentioning it to me.
Also, if you don't like Tom Hanks, stop listening to our podcast, because... Stop listening to all podcasts about movies, because who doesn't talk about Tom Hanks?
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. But we should be better about spreading around the love. Maybe a little bit. But anyway... So that's what we're going to do. So if you want to talk to us outside the podcast, I am on Twitter at CinematicallyC, and Tyler is on Twitter, blame TylerCC. If you want to reach him, please tag me. And we also have email, cinematicallycorrect@gmail.com.
I think email is your favorite.
I love when I get emails. It's so rare. But Krista emailed us. We actually had some random listener, I don't even remember their name at this point, but they emailed us a long time ago, and we had a nice conversation back and forth. And that's my favorite. I wish there was more of that. But if you want to, use the Twitter or email for audience ask ahead of time, because I am delayed sometimes. I like to only post once a day on Twitter it's because I don't want to overwhelm Twitter since I do all those retweets, you know what I'm saying? And I also forget things.
Yeah.
So do that, because we love to talk about things you guys want us to talk about. So do that. So other than that, we are on every other social media you can think of at CinematicallyC, but
Twitter's the best.
We're not really active unless we're on Twitter.
No, Twitter's the go.
Yeah, Twitter's the go-to. So anyways, thank you to Jake at Athens Music for our intro and outro music, and we will be back next time with League of Their Own.
Thank you all for listening.